Ladies and gentlemen, Nick Moseder here. Pause the video, go make some popcorn, and come back and get nice and comfortable, okay? Because we're going to go on a ride. I want to take you guys through what I have uncovered in the last 24 hours following the raid at the Fulton County election warehouse. Because we have Trump dropping bombshell after bombshell, which all but confirms virtually every single major election fraud conspiracy theory that was alleged following the 2020 election. Everybody from Rudy Giuliani to Sidney Powell to Mike Lindell are all vindicated according to Trump. And what's about to happen is massive. This is not just about domestic interference in Fulton County. This is about taking down an international global apparatus with multiple high-level nation-state operators. And we also have this very peculiar piece of the puzzle. It was noted yesterday that the Director of National Intelligence, Tulsi Gabbard, was seen standing inside the massive truck full of the boxes outside Fulton County, and this has its own implications, which helps us put this situation into a much broader context. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, you've got to see the big picture here. There is a lot more going on than meets the eye. And so, ladies and gentlemen, in this video, we're going to dive deep into what happened yesterday in Fulton County and how this all fits into a much bigger picture. But first, be sure to smash that like button and subscribe. That's all I ask, ladies and gentlemen. And without further ado, let's dive right in. So first and foremost, let's just all appreciate the magnitude and the scale of what took place in Fulton County yesterday. The FBI literally docked a massive truck up to the Fulton County election warehouse, and they took everything. They took all the ballots, they took the poll tapes, they took the digital images, the voter rolls, they took everything. And this was all part of a lawful search warrant that was authorized by a magistrate judge that agreed with the FBI's affidavit, which is under seal. We don't know exactly what evidence was put forth to the judge, but we know that evidence was strong enough to compel the magistrate judge to authorize a search warrant because there was probable cause to believe that a crime had been committed. Now, we already did the video yesterday, and I don't want to be too redundant here, but I want to make sure everybody's up to speed on why this took place and what this was all pertaining to. So just to give you a brief summary, it actually all goes back to voter GA, Garland Favorito. Remember the election integrity group? They filed a lawsuit after the 2020 election alleging that they had affidavits, sworn testimony from seasoned election workers that saw pristine counterfeit ballots being scanned and counted in the 2020 election. Garland Favorito took this evidence, filed a lawsuit, and was compelling Fulton County to hand over the ballots. Let's take a look. Can we take a look at these ballots? Let's see if there's any counterfeit in there. Now, as part of that lawsuit, in May 2021, Garland Favorito got the Henry County Superior Court Judge Brian Amaro to agree to unseal the ballots. But here's the catch. They never got access to those ballots because of delay tactics and Fulton County arguing that the ballots were still under seal, even though a court ordered them to be unsealed. And this dragged out for 5 years. Now, fast forward to July 2025, the Georgia State Election Board, after looking at the evidence of the case and subsequent evidence that was put forth by various election integrity activists like David Cross, Joseph Rossi, Kevin Moncla, they looked at a lot of evidence and decided, yeah, we definitely need to look into what happened here. So the Georgia State Election Board, they started trying to subpoena and compel Fulton County to turn it over, which they didn't. At which point in July of 2025, the Georgia State Election Board called on the Attorney General to intervene. So the Attorney General stepped in and on October 30th, 2025, issued a lawful subpoena to compel the production of these records. And then after Fulton County refused to comply with the subpoena, the DOJ then filed a civil action against Shay Alexander in her official capacity, accusing her of violating the Civil Rights Act of 1960 for blocking federal access. And looking at this civil complaint that was filed against Shay Alexander, we can say definitively that the search warrant pertained directly to this lawsuit because one, Shay Alexander is the plaintiff, the clerk of courts for Fulton County. Two, the statutes that are cited directly correlate with the statutes in the search warrant document itself. And three, because the items which were requested in this civil lawsuit are the exact items that they went in and seized via a search warrant. But essentially, what we can conclude is that there was a civil complaint that was filed, and there was a motion to dismiss. The Fulton County defendant tried to get this tossed out of court. And while this matter is still ongoing, the DOJ obtained evidence, likely new evidence that they didn't have before, that suggested that a crime had been committed. Either one, they had evidence to believe that Fulton County never properly stored the evidence that they're seeking. Two, they had reason to believe that Fulton County had destroyed or was in the process of destroying that evidence. Or three, they had reason to believe that outright fraud had been committed in Fulton County. And they took this evidence to a magistrate judge separate from the civil suit and said, hey, look, this is what's going down. They're not complying. We have reason to suspect that a crime's been committed. Give us permission to go and kick in a door and take what we need. And the judge saw the evidence in the affidavit, which is under seal, and said, yeah, it does look like a crime has been committed. Go right ahead. And so what the raid at Fulton County indicates to me is that this went from a civil complaint to a criminal matter, which means that most likely there are criminal charges coming for bad actors. Now, let's get into the real big stuff, the big meat and potatoes here, which builds upon what happened yesterday and takes it to a whole nother level. So first and foremost, let's go back to this. Okay, we have a image here, which was shared, of the United States Director of National Intelligence, Tulsi Gabbard, on the phone with a hat, being low-key, standing inside of the loading truck as all the evidence from Fulton County is being loaded into it. Now, why is this peculiar? Why is this strange? Well, because Tulsi Gabbard is the Director of National Intelligence. Okay, she oversees all the intel agencies, including the CIA and the NSA. And what business would she have regarding a domestic matter about paper ballots in Fulton County, Georgia? Why would she be there unless they're in pursuit of something much bigger involving foreign interference, cross-border operations, involving bad actors overseas? And if you think I'm being a little far-fetched here, let's take a look at what Trump posted on Truth Social last night. This was shared on Trump's official account on Truth Social. He reposted a tweet from the Skiff. The Skiff says, Maria Zack testified about the stolen 2020 election operation connected to Obama when he diverted $400 million from the infamous pallets of cash sent to Iran, funneling through the Dubai embassy to operatives in Italy and Merrill Lynch in Geneva, Switzerland. In return, Italian officials at Leonardo SPA used military satellites to help hack U.S. voting machines, flipping votes from Trump to Biden using CIA-developed tools like Hammer and Scorecard, along with numerous other methods of fraud and manipulation. China reportedly coordinated the whole operation, providing the tech, backbone, and bribes to corrupt Americans. The CIA oversaw it, the FBI covered it up, all to install Biden as a puppet. This is the global election fraud cartel and the real threat against American democracy and the rest of the world. Trump is giving a wink and a nod to one of the most wild election fraud conspiracy theories that there was. Italygate. Do you guys remember that? Where the blackouts at the Vatican and the Italian satellites? He is suggesting, and this is not me, we're talking about the President of the United States posting this on his official account, that the Obama administration in 2016 essentially laundered a $400 million slush fund through Iran so it couldn't be tracked or traced, because we're talking about a sanctioned country. Once that money hits Iran, it's gone. We don't have any ability to track it. Then it was funneled to a European slush fund to finance the crime in 2020. Now, the Italygate conspiracy goes that an Italian defense contractor allegedly used military satellites to beam down the hacking commands from Rome into the United States via the machines. Now, the weapon on the ground is the machines, which have back doors which allow this type of hacking. And we're saying that the CIA provided the hammer and scorecard software, the algorithm that was used to manipulate the machine. So it goes like this. You have the hammer, which is this gigantic CIA supercomputer. You have the software, which is scorecard, which is like the algorithm. And this was provided and used and projected through Italian satellites to the Dominion machines to manipulate the outcome of the election. We have $400 million going to Iran, being laundered through a European slush fund, and then China was the one that orchestrated the hit. That's what Trump is sharing on Truth Social, and all but alleging that's what happened, guys. This is insane. And so you may have some more questions here, okay? So how does Fulton County and Ruby Freeman and the water main break and, you know, the truckloads of ballots that arrived in Pennsylvania, how does all that fit into this? Because that was the question that I had when all of this stuff was coming out way back then. And I basically dismissed it because I was like, there's enough fraud domestically. We need to focus on that because it's easier to prove and it makes more sense. And I just kind of dismissed all the foreign interference stuff. But now it all makes sense. Here's how it went down according to the theories and according to Trump, who's validating that this is the case. So remember what Sidney Powell said, and she was called crazy for this. She was disbarred over this. She said that Hugo Chavez originated the Smartmatic software, which was then used around the world to rig elections. And she said there was an algorithm on election night which was supposed to rig the election for Joe Biden. But what happened was Trump received so many votes that he broke the algorithm. He broke it. And it wasn't enough to overcome the amount of votes that were coming in for Trump. So then what happened is, let's remember, they stopped the count in all the swing states. You had the water main break in Atlanta. You had it happen in Maricopa County. It happened in Wisconsin, it happened in Michigan, it happened in Pennsylvania. All the swing states simultaneously stopped counting, and then truckloads of ballots start showing up. Ruby Freeman stays overnight, working overtime, running duplicate ballots through the machines, and it happened in each major swing state to bring up the totals so that Joe Biden won by just a razor-thin margin. And so what appears to be the case is that there was foreign interference and domestic interference. Because let's think about it. If you had a machine algorithm, well, you'd have a problem because the actual paper ballots would not match the totals alleged by the machines, the certified results that the machines produce. If anyone were to look under the hood, they'd see there's not enough ballots here, or they'd see these totals don't actually match what the machine said. So the game is they have to then backfill to make sure everything matches. They were, basically trying to create votes on the spot that they didn't account for previously. They had sort of a plan B in place, a contingency plan in the event that they needed to pull the ballots out from under the suitcase. They were there in case they needed more. And so in the case of Fulton County, Georgia, the problem that they have is that you had sworn affidavits from seasoned election workers that saw ballots that looked counterfeit. These are supposed to be absentee ballots, meaning they were supposed to be tri-folded into an envelope, and for some reason, there's thousands of them that are not only pristine, meaning they were never folded, which means they couldn't have been sent through the mail or have ever been in an envelope, and they also look to be identical, as if to say these ballots were like copies of legitimate ballots. And so if anyone were to ever get a hold of these ballots and take a look, they would see that there's something wrong with these. They don't appear to be legitimate. And so I want you to understand that the Director of National Intelligence in the Trump administration has in their possession classified information regarding foreign interference, and the FBI just kicked in a door and seized the evidence of the domestic interference which coincides with the foreign interference. And don't you think the timing of all this is a little bit strange, considering the fact that Delta Force just went over to Venezuela and captured Nicolas Maduro, who's central to the entire apparatus, and perhaps he's singing like a canary and cooperating with the Trump administration to give up the goods regarding the Dominion Smartmatic voting software and this system implemented around the world. Oh, and by the way, I don't know if you guys saw this, but just recently, Eric Coomer, the Dominion voting employee, admitted in sworn discovery that he actually met with foreign nationals to discuss voting equipment, discussed vote adjudication software with foreign employees, discussed election system code and programming at a code-based level with foreign employees, and these are his admissions in a court of law. This just came out. We have a Dominion voting systems employee admitting that he actually met with foreign countries to discuss voting equipment and software coding at a base code level and all this stuff. This just came out in court. So there's so much stuff going on, guys. And so I think it's safe to say that the riggers are really panicking right now. They're shaking in their boots. They know accountability is coming. They know that Trump has their number. That's why you see the freak out over Fulton County right now. And the people that had their lives destroyed were disbarred, jailed, called crazy, conspiracy theorists, kicked off the internet, are all vindicated and are about to be proven to be right. And ladies and gentlemen, we should have known that this was coming because Trump actually knows what he's doing. And for those of you that doubted and called me crazy and said that I'm just, peddling hopium and being too optimistic, well, I want to play a video to close this video out. So I'm going to leave you with this. This was posted on Trump's True Social page once again. But before we go, be sure to like and subscribe, turn the bell notifications on, and if you want to support the channel, you can do so by either becoming a member for a few dollars a month. That would be greatly appreciated. Or you can go to mypillow.com/Nick and save up to 66% off the best sleep products in the world. Anyways, thanks for watching, and I will see you next time.
Do you remember what it was like when the 2020 election was rigged and stolen? Do you remember all the bullshit stories people told you about how the fraudulent election would be overturned? Do you remember the symbols of tyranny when fences went up around D.C. for Joe Biden's inauguration? Do you remember watching fuel and food prices skyrocket in a matter of months? Do you remember watching our borders being invaded by a virtual army of unidentified criminals? Do you remember watching our nation get systematically destroyed for 4 years by the Joe Biden autopen administration? Do you remember longing for the days of winning when we had Donald Trump in the White House? Do you remember thinking he was going to die when the bullet aimed at his brain only grazed his ear? Do you remember rejoicing after witnessing the miracle that saved his life? Do you remember celebrating the epic landslide victory in November of 2024? This is what you hoped for. This is what you prayed for. This is what you voted for. So why are you questioning every decision he makes now that he's back in office? God didn't save his life so he could make mistakes. He knows what he's doing. Maybe it's time to shut the fuck up and let him cook. This has been a public service announcement paid for by the Dilly Meme Team.